I'm taken where the cliffs embrace me, close to Lion Rock, riding on the west wind. I'm taken where the moonlight veils me. I used to feel the breeze of west air that brushed across my cheek. So long ago, erased from memory. Over Lookout Hill, from Intrinsic Bay, I feel the stormy waters round me. On the Diamond Rocks, time is changing me. I'm taken where the cliffs embrace me. I used to dance the night away in far-off cities welcoming. I long for music setting my soul free. From the Bishop's Island, trace the tide of silver, running with the wind behind me. Wild imaginings, and now my wings lie broken, scattered round the bay. From the Bishop's Island, trace the tide of silver, running with the wind behind me, setting with the sun. Changing me. I wonder where my life has gone.
Hi, Melanie.
Hi, Karine.
Very glad to see you here in France, in Caen, where you live almost. You come very often to Ouistreham. Can you please remind me why you come so often in Normandy, where you come from, and what kind of music you're making?
Well, it's a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you so much for having me as an invited guest. And I come to Normandy often because first of all, I love it. And it was the first time my family had a holiday outside Ireland, was in Deauville. And it was a holiday to remember always. So maybe there's a special thing about that memory is resonating. So I continue to come back because I love to sing for the French audiences, because my music of Celtic jazz is a fusion of Irish traditional music and also of jazz, and the French love both. And also, some years ago, I had a lot of concerts here, so I was able to sing around Normandy. I got to like it, and now there is a connection in Ireland, because where I am residing, where I have my home, is in southeast Ireland, called Wexford, and there are a lot of, there's a lot of history of the Normans who invaded Ireland in 1169. That's a long time ago. But we now have, the Normans brought a lot of culture. So they integrated with the Irish very well. And we have a lot of Norman history in Southeast Ireland. So there is another connection with Normandy. My music of jazz and Celtic began a long time ago with inspired by seeing other musicians, both traditional and jazz, in a folk club when I was in my early teens. So I saw the Chieftains, a very well-known Irish group, and Louis Stewart, a very wonderful jazz legend who was a guitarist. Unfortunately, he's passed away now. But he and his trio were on the same night, a very special concert when I was about 11 years of age. And I saw they made music together. So they jammed together, if you like. And that was an inspiration to me to someday I will do the same. I will put the two traditions together. So that's what I do. And I love both traditions.
Well, you mix both traditions with such power, with such fantasy, such intelligence. Your last performance that I was lucky enough to contribute to included a song referring to Ulysses of James Joyce. So you are also a very literary artist. Yes. You are a singer, you are a musician, you are a poet because you write songs, and you also have an incredible culture. Can you say a few words, not only about the cultures that you are mixing, but also about the mark, what is really specific to your inspiration, what makes you want to keep on writing songs, singing songs, being in front of audiences? What kind of feeling do you want to transmit through your art?
Des bonnes questions. Thank you so much. Well, firstly, I was very inspired to write more from the culture we have in Ireland with James Joyce, for example, because I was brought up in a family of theatre, music and literature. So the arts are very important in my family, and I was brought up with that. So that's why, and for example, I love dance as well. So that's another reason why we are collaborating, and I am enjoying it. And you know, it's an honor to be collaborating with you, Karine. And so that is, you know, the arts is so special for civilization. Now, the James Joyce inspiration came from Ulysses, because Ulysses is an incredible epic journey, but James Joyce called upon not only the Ulysses, the Greek stories, but the Irish mythological stories too. And he writes that in letters. Therefore, that gives me inspiration to dig deep into our own Irish culture and history and myths. So that is one inspiration, as Ulysses, Molly Bloom, James Joyce. But I'm very inspired by Irish poetry and Irish Gaelic poetry too, because the Gaelic poetry is very, very deep and the language is very old, and the language is very beautiful and is very rhythmic. So everything I like about music is in the language. I was taught in school a long time ago, but I'm not fluent in speaking Irish, but I do know how to sing in Irish. I was given a great coaching by a teacher who was an Irish language speaker and also a singer, but an opera singer. But she taught me how to sing in Irish Gaelic. So she gave me what we call a blas, a goût, a taste, and when I speak, she gave me a sense of how to sing it. But my natural sense of rhythm, which I was born with, but also I've developed with experience now, I love rhythm and I love the sound of the language. So I hope that when I sing my songs that are inspired by our deep Irish culture of literature and poetry and history and myth, it's a very rich culture. So I hope that by sharing my songs that I can share with the audience my love and passion for something that brings us further than our daily life. It enriches us. And that's another reason why I so enjoy singing for your dancers and for your choreography, because it helps to broaden the boundaries, yeah, and to push the boundaries. And so it becomes more enriching. And it's I know that I have noticed that every audience that have seen this show and seen the music, heard the music and seen the dance together, they have really enjoyed it. And it's been very interesting for me to see again how the French react. And they don't want to leave the venue. It's lovely. But it's very important that we continue to bring what we can do as artists to enrich our civilization and, first of all, our own communities.
Talking about your own community, what is so special according to your very deep feeling? You know, not just social habits, but what is so special about Irish culture? You lived in America, in the United States for a while. You were in Berkeley University, yes, if I remember right. What was not in this American way of life that is in your Irish way of life?
Very good questions. America was a wonderful experience for me in many ways, because firstly it is the home of jazz. It's where jazz began. Jazz is fundamentally a form that was devised and developed in America by the African American culture firstly, and then of course it's now become a world culture. But to spend time there was very important for learning more about jazz and the deep sense of how the Americans play it and accompany me, and I learned so much from wonderful musicians there. But in turn, the American musicians really liked working with me, because not only because I'm a singer, because very many people like to work with singers, but because of the fact that I was doing something different, and that Celtic jazz, and that I was drawing on from my own culture. And so the Americans really understood that. It was very interesting. They just got it. And so they wanted to bring their culture to support mine. And so that's why I really enjoyed working with so many musicians there, and in fact wrote songs there, collaborating with musicians such as Frank Martin and John Burr. And so the question is now, what does Irish culture have that nobody else has, perhaps. And again, it's because it is very old. It is a very old culture that draws from history and from mythological stories, but they are resonating in our culture. And we have, thousands of years later, we still continue that in a different way. Of course, it's a long time ago, but the depth of the Irish culture is very deep, because literature, poetry, music and singing goes way, way back, and was a very, very important part of the tribes. And even in the mythological stories, you will find a lot of stories of the Fianna talk about how music, the harp, the singing, the celebration, it's all part of celebrating life. And so that goes way, way back. And then for a long time, the bards and the musicians, the storytellers, who had this tradition of telling stories that were sometimes hours and hours and hours in telling stories that were handed on orally. So it's an oral tradition, which is very, very deep. So for a long time it wasn't written down, but it resonated and we remembered it, because it was handed over and handed down and handed over to the next generation and the next generation and so on. So it resonates very deeply as a celebration of life. But because it's so old and because it's against all odds in our history, it has survived in some way. This is why I think people like to really love to partake in it and to listen to it, because it's local in a sense. It's particularly an Irish culture with, as I mentioned, the Gaelic language, the music that is particularly Irish, although of course it has its times of melting with Scottish, for example, Scottish in Ireland, but also when the Normans came again, some mélange with the rhythms, but specifically it's still Irish. And so we continue that with the fusion of poetry, music and storytelling and singing. And this is expression. This is a deep expression. So the Irish culture brings all of that together. And as I said, the bard and the storyteller and the musicians used to be very powerful in the community because they were supported by the chieftains. Now that's a long time ago, but it managed to keep the tradition. We think that. And so now we had to, we have to fight that it keeps continuing. When I say to fight, we have to be alert to, we have to be aware that we keep continuing that. But I am amazed how, for example, in America, so many people, and in France too, and any other country I've been to, how the public respond to it, because it's local and yet it's universal. And I think that's why it resonates.
Well, as a dancer and as a choreographer, I can really say that it's very difficult to resist to the power and the magic of the pieces for the dance. In your concert you have a few instrumental pieces with fiddle. And when you say this culture is very ancient, very old, I would like to know these pieces which are very repetitive, very rhythmical, to what part of the culture are they connected? When do they appear? When did they appear? And the forms that you play today, the forms that we know today, are they an evolution of very ancient forms? And what has changed in the 20th century, 19th, 18th, 17th? When did it all start and how did it evolve through history?
there are big questions there, but I will try and keep it succinct. We think, you see, because of the history of Ireland, because of the fact that it was colonized, there was, we think, a high art before it was almost destroyed, right? So, for example, people might have heard of Turlough O'Carolan, and he was a blind harpist in the 17th century, in the 1600s. And his music, he was a prolific composer. A harpist, yes, but as a composer, his music still echoes down the years. It's really resonates. And that is the last, he and maybe a few other composers, we have just a few remnants, if you like, of that time, which shows that the music went before that was quite a high art. And because of the colonization, then, you know, the musicians were, let's say, the respect and the level at which they were previous to the takeover of Ireland in the 17th century. Previous to that, the civilization was very high and high art, and then it decreased because of what happened. So the musicians could not have their harps. They weren't allowed to actually own their instruments, etc. Okay, so they had to find other ways. And so in a way, it sort of went underground and continued the best it could with people. Eventually it came out again, but it was a bit different because of the famines and the poverty. But the music still kept people's spirit going. But a lot of the old high art and if you like, the high level music of a very interesting European as well, very European. And so it became in some ways more localized after the Great Famine. And after that, the music came back, but it was more, the rhythms, they are very actually influenced by Scottish as well as French and European. But they have their own Irishness. And that's what you hear a lot of the jigs and reels. Mm-hmm. And they have developed in what's called the sessions, for example, which are a very important part of the Irish traditional culture, to play together in pubs or maybe just on the street, you know, but in people's homes, whatever. People get together and play the tunes and repeat them and repeat them and repeat them. And that's partly because that's the way it's developed. And it's very much to make people dance originally, I think. That's what I've read, and that's what there are other people, historians and scholars would have more to say about that. But I think it was very important to have the rhythmic momentum. And in a way, it's also a momentum it's almost of its own momentum. Once you get a chemistry of people playing together who really love playing together, you have this momentum. And that can keep going and going and going, which is why a lot of the sessions are, you know, very, take a long time. And we all enjoy the camaraderie that goes with it. But it does help to bring communities together. But to answer that, as I say, the rhythm developed in these sessions and around. And then there are different kinds of rhythms around different parts of Ireland. So the jigs and the reels would be the most common, but there are also hornpipes and polkas, even a particular Kerry polka, that sort of thing. People can now, when it comes to singing, that is another tradition that has developed through the same reasons that Gaelic language was almost destroyed with the colonization, and the flight of the earls, and you know the chieftains had to flee from Ireland, etc. So the old civilization was almost extinct, but we have held on, and it's redeveloped very much over the last 20th century, 21st century. And the singing is coming from a tradition of Gaelic and also English. And then you have, because obviously English language songs as well. And so you have storytelling songs, you have laments, emigration songs, songs of history, of the history of the Irish people. And also we have lilting, which is a form of music without sans parole, without words. So it's...
Can you do a little of it?
Yeah, okay. Diddly and do da diddle daddle diddle dum diddly and diddly and diddly and diddly dum do diddly and do da diddle daddle diddle dum diddly and diddly and diddly dum do diddly and do da diddle daddle diddle dum diddly and diddly and diddly and diddly dum do diddly and do da diddle daddle diddle dum diddly and diddly and diddly dum do diddly and do da diddle daddle diddle dum diddly and diddly and diddly and diddly dum do diddly and do da diddle daddle diddle dum diddly and diddly and diddly dum do diddly and do da diddle daddle diddle dum diddly and diddly and diddly dum do diddly and do da diddle daddle diddle dum diddly and diddly dum. Merci beaucoup.
This was a great performance where you were singing this way. Just one last question, which is what are your next plans?
My next plans are that I will come back to Ireland and then come back to France and do more work on my Celtic jazz and record more. Thank you so much, Karine.
Chud kan siri, chud le rawa, chud le stracha, chud le bacha, chud le fuisha, chud le haran, chud le brehars, chud kan tu da gael. Chud le mela, chud le trecha, chud le kahu, chud le laska, chud le tlipa, chud le naila, chud le pleasure, chud le dausa. She droling a for us for at litla, goilem nor variant all the door. I rig a dig of Jordan and Yach, no curry made trolling in master, cause she droling a for us in Sakurak. Bisham Harakas, Jackas and Mac, the bike she shoots off his pushak, pack she a drink of the mac shake through shah. Diddly I don't da 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 diddly I don't da. Chud kan siri, chud le rawa, chud le stracha, chud le bacha, chud le fuisha, chud le haran, chud le brehart, chud kan tu da gael. Chud le mela, chud le trecha, chud le kahu, chud le laska, chud le tlipa, chud le naila, chud le pleasure, chud le dausa. She droling a for us for at litla, goilem nor variant all the door. I rig a tea of Jordan and Yach, no curry made trolling in master, cause she droling a for us in Sakurak. Bisham Harakas, Jackas and Mac, the bike she shoots off his pushak, pack she a drink of the mac shake through shah. Diddly I don't da 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 diddly I don't da. Or do ya? Chud le rawa, chud le stracha, chud le bacha, chud le fuisha, chud le haran, chud le mela, chud le trecha, chud kan siri, chud le rawa, chud le stracha, chud le bacha, chud le fuisha, chud le haran, chud le mela, chud le trecha. Ar do ya?
welcome to Wexford, Ireland. Céad míle fáilte a chairde agus a gcuine uaisle. It's an honour to be part of this commemorative event of the 75th anniversary of the signing of the Charter of the United Nations. For many years I lived in San Francisco, and I had the honour and privilege to work with the United Nations of the San Francisco chapter, and it is wonderful to be part of this incredible event. Myself and Miles Strennan on piano are going to give you some songs as a musical interlude, such as my own Annie Moore, which celebrates the coming of the first official immigrant to Ellis Island. Annie Moore was the first person who disembarked in 1892, and she came from Ireland. Two other songs are also original, co-written with the Irish Gaelic poet Nuala Ní. We hope you enjoy. Thank you so much. Thank you also to Greenacres Gallery, who have supported us in giving us this space in Wexford town to perform. Thank you also to Wexford Art Centre, who have supported us in making this happen. Enjoy, everyone. America lay close by, but first came Ellis Island. I hold the letter in my hand and walk my way to Limbo. I'm just a number in this new land. I'm just a number in this new land. And my name is Annie Moore, and my name is Annie Moore, and my name is Annie Moore, and my name is Annie Moore. We waved, we wept, and shed a tear, our hopes for something greater. I walked the stair of separation and said, I'll see you later. We are passed through to seed a new nation. We are passed through to seed a new nation. And my name is Annie Moore, my name is Annie Moore, and my name is Annie Moore, my name is Annie Moore. And my name is Annie Moore, and my name is Annie Moore, and my name is Annie Moore, and my name is Annie Moore. And as I leave the Isle of Fear, and east is at the back of me, I pass the Lady of Liberty and make my leave for freedom. I make my way to freedom. My name is Annie Moore. My name is Annie Moore. My name is Annie Moore. I make my way to freedom. I make my way to freedom, 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 freedom. I make my way to freedom. And my name is Annie Moore. Clashin' avec l'air sonia Eg roiam chat gaji de lam triata Funyana gumma haran mogna It's more I've shone the glory I guess there's never En jag tar It's more I've shot the glory I guess it's never I hear you call in the night to the Isle of Mystery. To the Isle of Enchantment. To the Isle of Enchantment. Punyanda gumma hernya harun mogna. Is more I've shone with Lord, I guess it's never. Cool.